From Manila to the globe, this is World Newsfeed, bringing you the biggest stories shaping our times. Good morning, I'm Raine Musñgi. Let's dive into the headlines making a global impact. United States envoy Amos Hochstein said the agreed ceasefire in Lebanon is permanent and not just for 60 days. Speaking to Al Jazeera in an exclusive interview, Hochstein explained that Israeli troops currently based in southern Lebanon will depart over the next 60 days. Meanwhile, all firing stops starting Wednesday. Hochstein, who negotiated the agreement, added that implementing the proposal effectively is better than implementing it with speed. The ceasefire proposal calls for Israel to stop all military operations against Lebanese territory, including attacks on civilian and military targets, as well as Lebanese state institutions by land, air, and sea. All armed groups in Lebanon, meaning Hezbollah and its allies, would halt operations against Israel, according to the text.
This ceasefire is a permanent ceasefire. It's not for 60 days. It is a permanent ceasefire. Well, the mechanism will have UNIFIL in it. It will be chaired by the United States with France, but UNIFIL will be in it. But there requires a lot of coordination as the Lebanese army deploys into these areas in the south, and making sure that the Israelis then know when they're coming so that the Israelis can deploy. That is the job that the mechanism is going to be doing in order to make sure that everything is smooth and seamless. We don't have to be fast. We have to be smart, and we have to be effective, because what we don't want is a repeat of 2006 when the war ended and there was no implementation of the deal, which brought us to the war that we had this year and the such tragic loss of life on all sides.
While the ceasefire between Israel and Lebanese armed group Hezbollah is holding on Wednesday after the two sides struck a deal brokered by the U.S. and France, but Israel warned local residents should not return to the border area just yet or approach its troops. The agreement, a rare diplomatic feat in a region racked by conflict for months, ended the deadliest confrontation between Israel and Iran-backed militant group in years. Lebanon's army, entrusted with ensuring the ceasefire lasts, said it had begun deploying additional troops south of Litani into a region heavily bombarded by Israel. In Lebanon, some cars flew national flags, others honked, and one woman could be seen flashing the victory sign with her fingers as people started to return to homes they had fled.
We support a ceasefire. We care about a ceasefire, but without a fuss, without any fraud on resolutions and legitimacy. The Lebanese state and Lebanese army and armed forces take control of everything and control the airport and land and maritime borders. No weapons should enter, and no party beside the Lebanese army and legitimate forces should deal with weapons. This is what we care about. Of course, we care about a ceasefire as soon as possible.
Israel set a curfew and warned local residents not to return to the border area yet or approach its troops. Israel has said its military aim in Lebanon had been to ensure the safe return of about 60,000 Israelis who fled from their communities along the northern border when Hezbollah started firing rockets at them in support of Hamas in Gaza.
We're going home to see that everything is okay, that all our stuff is still there, and it doesn't matter, agreements or not. Eventually, we will return here and everything will be okay, and the old way of thinking is broken.
Hezbollah lawmaker Hassan Fadlallah said Israel had not met its war aims in Lebanon after a ceasefire took effect. Fadlallah said on a visit to Bint Jbeil Wednesday that Israel had set large war aims in Lebanon that it had not met during the conflict.
The government of Netanyahu set big goals for its war. A new Middle East, changing the infrastructure of Lebanon and the face of Lebanon, destroying the resistance, disarming the resistance, and setting up a buffer zone in the south of the Litani and the return of the settlers by firepower. Which of these goals did they achieve?
Meanwhile, Israel has informed the International Criminal Court that it will contest the arrest warrants for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant over their conduct of the Gaza war. Netanyahu's office said on Wednesday that Israel has rejected the jurisdiction of the Hague-based court and denies war crimes in Gaza. ICC spokesperson Fadi El Abdallah told journalists the country involved or a person named in an arrest warrant can also issue a challenge to the jurisdiction of the court or the admissibility of the case. He also said that if requests for an appeal were submitted, it would be up to the judges to decide whether to pause or defer the investigation or prosecution for a year, with the possibility of renewing that annually. U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham issued a sharp warning against the enforcement of International Criminal Court arrest warrants targeting Israeli leaders. Speaking at a press conference in Jerusalem Wednesday, he called ICC's move outrageous legal fiction and warned any country against implementing the arrest warrant or be faced with America's resistance.
The International Criminal Court's issuance of an arrest warrant for the Prime Minister of Israel and the former Defense Minister is beyond outrageous. It tramples on every concept that I hold near and dear as a lawyer, the rule of law. This court has found jurisdiction in this matter by believing and creating the fact that Gaza is part of a Palestinian state. That is a legal fiction. That is not true. For them to exercise jurisdiction, they had to have somebody make the complaint. They ruled bizarrely that Gaza is part of a Palestinian state. My question to the ICC, who's the leader of the Palestinian state? What is its boundaries? What kind of government does it have? What is its charter? You can't answer any of those questions. I am going back to Congress and introduce legislation very soon that would sanction any country that tried to enforce the arrest warrant against Israel. So you could be a close ally, Canada, Britain, France, you name it. If you buy into this arrest warrant as legitimate, then you're going to meet stiff bipartisan resistance in America.
A Reuters report says the Biden administration is pushing ahead with a $680 million arms sales package to Israel, even as a U.S. brokered ceasefire in Lebanon between Israel and Hezbollah has come into effect. The package, which was first reported by the Financial Times, includes thousands of joint direct attack munition kits and hundreds of small diameter bombs. Donald Trump has tapped Keith Kellogg, a retired lieutenant general who has presented him with a plan to end the war in Ukraine, to serve as a special envoy for the conflict. The president-elect made that announcement on Truth Social on Wednesday, even as there is currently no special envoy for the war in Ukraine. Reuters reported in June that Kellogg's plan for ending the war, which began when Russia invaded Ukrainian sovereign territory, involves freezing the battle lines at their prevailing locations and then forcing both Kyiv and Moscow to the negotiating table. Quickly winding down the Ukraine war was one of Trump's central campaign promises. Russia says any decision by President-elect Donald Trump's incoming administration to cut support for Ukraine would be a death sentence for the Ukrainian army. This while accusing Kyiv of trying to drag NATO countries into direct conflict with Russia in the meantime. Speaking to the UN Security Council, Moscow's deputy UN ambassador said, that's Dmitry Polayinsky. He accused the outgoing Biden administration of trying, through its increased support to Ukraine, to create a mess, both in Russia and with the new team in the White House. He said Russia had repeatedly offered to negotiate, but Ukraine and its Western backers have favored escalation. The Russian Foreign Ministry also said that an idea being floated in some circles that the West should give Ukraine nuclear weapons was insane and suicidal. that preventing such a scenario was one of the reasons why Moscow went into Ukraine. She said that what she called irresponsible actions by Ukraine and its Western backers could bring the world to the brink of catastrophe.
К этому относимся как к безумию.
Frankly speaking, there is no doubt that the collective West may well provide Ukraine with the opportunity to acquire nuclear weapons. Our opponents have repeatedly proven that no international treaties or obligations hold them back. I cannot tell you that we have any facts that we can share at this stage, but we believe that it is in the interests of truly responsible states to prevent such a development of events. The irresponsible actions of the Kyiv regime and its Western curators may put the entire world on the brink of disaster. And I think that the world majority understands this perfectly well.
U.S. Deputy UN Ambassador Robert Wood told the session that Washington would continue to surge security assistance to Ukraine to strengthen its abilities, including air defense, and put Ukraine in the best position possible on the battlefield. Speaking earlier at the same UN session, UN Assistant Secretary General Miroslav Jenka highlighted recent Russian long-range missile strikes in Ukraine and called the use of ballistic missiles and related threats there a very dangerous escalatory development. News from around Asia in the next minute. Keep it here on World Newsfeed.
Ciao, mabuhay. You are watching The Word Exposed.
Prepare our hearts as we dive deeper into our faith and receive the strength from God's Word. Join Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle as he shares the reflection we need for the rest of the week.
We pray that the Word of God would find fulfillment in your life and His blessings be always upon you.
Every Sunday, 7 a.m., with replays at 3 p.m.
This is The Scorecard, where you score the latest sports news and in-depth views. I'm Anton Rojas.
Get ready, be prepared, get to the latest stories, updates, and reports about what's happening in the world of sports. Hosted by Anton Rojas.
The Scorecard, where sports is our business and business is our sport, right here.
The Scorecard on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Welcome to Weather HQ. Today's headlines.
Get to know the latest weather update and forecast.
Now, in the satellite image, we can see the air is covered by the storm.
With information to help us understand important aspects regarding our climate, plus different updates and talks.
A reminder to everyone out there to stay safe and dry throughout this inclement time, and hopefully we can get in contact with him very soon.
Paulo Del Rosario, Weather HQ, 9 a.m. on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.
It has no authorization.
We hope and pray that it will not.
Right. Thanks for having me here.
Our frustrated
By myself, basically.
We always say that.
It depends.
A well-concerted effort.
Perhaps I can reiterate. My greatest beefsteak. Iba na, iba pa na yun.
Welcome back to World Newsfeed. Mexico would retaliate if U.S. President-elect Donald Trump followed through with his proposed 25% across-the-board tariff. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said on Wednesday it's a move her government warned could kill 400,000 U.S. jobs. Mexican economy minister Marcelo Ebrard warned that tariffs would also lead to lower growth and hit U.S. companies producing in Mexico by effectively doubling the taxes they paid.
What the Secretary of Economy is preparing is, in case there are tariffs, Mexico would also raise tariffs. So it is a technical work that would also represent benefits for Mexico in the event of a situation like this. We have a plan. And I am convinced that the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement treaty will remain. The treaty helps all three economies, and this is known by all three countries, their businessmen, businesswomen, and their governments.
Se le coloca 25% de impuesto.
If we impose a 25% tax on the companies I have already described, though there are many others, this could affect 400,000 jobs in the United States. That is the estimated impact.
Well, the proposed tariffs would hit the automotive sector's top cross-border exporters especially hard, he added, namely Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis, and push up vehicle prices for consumers by thousands of dollars. Mexico is the United States' top trade partner, and its automotive industry is the country's most important manufacturing sector, exporting predominantly to the U.S. It represents nearly 25% of all North American vehicle production. China has released U.S. citizens Mark Sweden, Kai Li, and John Leung. The National Security Council said in a statement that the three men's release meant all Americans it deemed wrongfully detained in China had now been released. The Biden administration also on Wednesday upgraded its travel advisory for China, a move long sought by Beijing that U.S. officials have tied to the detention of American nationals by China. Texas-based businessman Mark Sweden was imprisoned for 12 years in China on drug-related charges despite a lack of evidence. Chinese-American Kai Li was detained in China since 2016 on espionage charges that he denied. And John Leung was sentenced to life in 2023 and accused also of being an American spy. An ICC prosecutor plans to seek an arrest warrant for Myanmar's military leader Min Aung Hlaing for crimes against humanity over the alleged persecution of the Rohingya, a mainly Muslim minority. A panel of 3 judges will now decide if they agree that there are reasonable grounds to believe that General Min Aung Hlaing bears criminal responsibility for the deportation and persecution of Rohingya in Myanmar and Bangladesh. The prosecutor's office said in a statement that more applications for arrest warrants relating to Myanmar will follow.
This is the first application for an arrest warrant against a high-level Myanmar government official that my office is filing. More will follow. Today's application is the outcome of an independent and impartial investigation based upon a wide variety of evidence from numerous sources, such as witness testimonies, including from insider witnesses, and authenticated, credible, photographic and video materials. I request state parties to the Rome Statute to fully cooperate with the court in enforcing any judicial decision that may be issued. And I particularly welcome support from non-state parties, particularly in South Asia and Southeast Asia regions, considering that this crisis in Myanmar in 2016 and 2017 has had and continues to have profound effects across the region. Today marks a culmination of this stage of our work. We will continue to focus in the coming weeks and months as we seek to submit additional applications in this situation. In doing so, we will seek to show that the Rohingya have not been forgotten, that they, like all people around the world, deserve and are entitled to the protection of the law.
More than 730,000 Rohingya Muslims have fled to Bangladesh during the campaign, which UN investigators said was carried out with genocidal intent. Buddhist majority Myanmar denies accusations of genocide, saying it carried out military operations against terrorists. Hundreds of protesters were shot and thousands arrested during protests at Royal, Pakistan's capital this week. A key aide to former Prime Minister Imran Khan said on Wednesday, Pakistani authorities arrested nearly 1,000 supporters of the jailed former prime minister who stormed the capital this week to demand his release. Police had earlier said no lethal arms were used in Tuesday night's operations and that hundreds of protesters had been arrested. Police denied that live ammunition had been used during the operation, which they said was conducted alongside paramilitary forces. In South Korea now, Seoul experienced its heaviest November snowfall on record on Wednesday, leading to severe traffic disruptions, power outages, and the cancellation of over 200 flights. Airports faced harsh weather, including strong winds and at least 70 ferries being suspended. The Interior Ministry warned of continued snowfall, forecasting up to 5 centimeters per hour until morning today. Cooler air turned rain into snow overnight, resulting in a total accumulation of 18 centimeters by 3 p.m., the biggest volume since records began in 1907. On a lighter note, twin giant pandas were observed playing in the snow at a zoo in Yongin. In video clips shared by Evelyn Theme Park, Rui Bao and Hui Bao were captured sliding on a snow-covered field and enjoying bamboo as snow fell around them and their parents. Born in July 2023, the twin pandas were experiencing snow for the first time as they stayed indoors last winter. Finally, embracing the Thanksgiving spirit, NASA astronauts shared a heartfelt message to celebrate the holiday. Alongside their message from outer space Wednesday, they offered a glimpse of their festive space meal, which will feature vacuum-packed smoked turkey, Brussels sprouts, and butternut squash.
Greetings from the International Space Station. Our crew up here just wanted to say happy Thanksgiving to all our friends and family who are down on Earth and everyone who is supporting us.
Thanksgiving is typically a holiday where family and friends get together. Sometimes that can't happen to physically be around each other, but today's age, you can virtually tie in to your family and friends.
And one of those big traditions is having a Thanksgiving meal together. And so we're going to celebrate that tradition up here, though our meal may look a little bit different. Don, if you hold the mic. So we've got a container here of all the things that we're going to enjoy on Thanksgiving. It is a feast. Let me see. We've got Brussels sprouts, butternut squash, apples and spice,
smoked turkey,
and smoked turkey. It's going to be delicious.
Well, on the 5th of December, astronauts Suni Williams and Barry Butch Wilmore, the first crew to fly Boeing Starliner spacecraft last June, will mark 6 months in space. Originally scheduled for a brief mission, the astronauts remain aboard the International Space Station with Don Pettit and Nick Hague after technical issues forced Starliner to return to Earth unmanned. Now set to last 8 months, their mission will continue with a return aboard a SpaceX vehicle in February 2025.
It's true we have much to be thankful for. On a professional sense, I mean, there's not many places that you can be that you can actually lay on the ceiling, and this is one of them. We're thankful for zero gravity. It's fantastic. And of course, in a personal sense, our family, our friends, those that are lifting up prayers for us and have been, we're grateful for that. We're grateful for a nation that is a spacefaring nation that lets us live free, say what we think is important to say, and so many other things. So much to be thankful for in this season, to be reminded of that, to have a holiday that celebrates that, that's something to be thankful for as well. And so from all of us on the International Space Station,
Happy Thanksgiving!
And that's all for now. Thank you so much for joining us. Catch up with us again tomorrow at 10 when we bring you The World in 30 minutes, only on World Newsfeed. Follow the Money comes next. Keep it here on Bilyonaryo News Channel, always on top.